Well, let me bring up Nvidia. Let's just focus on that for a moment. I know you like it. It seems as to be hobbled by scuttlebutt, things that can't shake. So a week or so ago, I think it was Analysis said, hey, Vera Rubin's delayed for a year, for an entire year. It shook up everything associated with that. We had sort of soft pushback from Jensen. He's in Japan overnight. He says, no, it's not true. Vera Rubin is already in production, and yet the stock is still down. How does this stock get traction?
Yeah, I mean, expectations are running really high, but they've got an enormous moat. They have, huge visibility of revenue, whether it's, the newer chips or even, the existing supply that they've got in place. So I think it's a great company, continues to beat earnings and on expectations and revenues, and it's trading at a market discount. So, how much of it do you want?
Okay, just in other words, buy it, and when it happens, I will tell you this: when these things move, they move so quick. You find yourself tough. Like, do I chase it? So maybe it's better to just keep positioning, and when that moment comes, you're confident it will. I happen to believe it will too, as well.
Should we think about these Chinese models in that? With DeepSeek, they showed that they can do it on a low-cost basis. With these other models, they show that they can compete with the best frontier models the U.S. has to offer, and yet all of this is being done not on the latest, greatest AI chips. They're being done on, last generation or some other substitute.
Yeah, and I remember when DeepSeek first came out, my thought was people just are underestimating the Chinese because there's a saying that necessity is the mother of invention. And so for them, they're not getting the latest and greatest chips. So they're going, okay, what innovations can we do to get around that versus just throwing more hardware at the problem? And so that's why DeepSeek came up with these things like mixture of experts. And as you're rightly pointing out, people then were like, okay, they can kind of do this in the low end, but they can't really compete with Anthropic and OpenAI. This shows they can compete. And so there's three vectors that you can say along the AI trade. One is, well, you got the top 1% of companies trying to cut back on their AI bills like Coinbase, right? And that's going to cause an issue. You've got token, though, production skyrocketing because of agentic AI. But the final piece, which is where this fits in, is, well, okay, the token production is going up a lot, but how much do I have to pay per token? And what things like Moonshot, Kimmy K that came out last week, and then you've got Quen show is that, hey, I can maybe spend a lot less per token than I thought. And so it's really the interplay of those three different factors on the trade. And, I've been thinking, my thoughts continue to evolve that I think all these frontier models eventually become commoditized. And so the play is better on the infrastructure side versus the model side, where every week a new model comes out and it all of a sudden jumps to the top of the ranks.
So, Dan, it remains positive for the infrastructure if that's the dynamic we're headed for, if all of these competitors building the models, trying to provide the interface for AI, just want to keep spending in an open-handed way. And I guess that's been the big question, right? You've seen semis, as you kind of indicated might happen a month ago. They've had this nasty gut check, especially the memory side. The whole food chain is now under pressure, being questioned. It looks super cheap if you believe the numbers multi-years out. But where does that leave this trade?
Yeah, I mean, looking multi-years out is a fool's errand because you can go back to 2000. The predictions were really rosy for 2002. And NASDAQ went down 78% from peak to trough. So when I hear people saying, well, memory's not cyclical anymore, it just makes me itch because I remember people saying the same thing back in 2000, and it's just not true. So I don't look that far out. What I'm trying to look is very near term and say, okay, I've got an issue here when you've got people like Coinbase, the CEO put out that post on June 26th saying, hey, we're using these open source models, amongst other things we're doing, to help cut our AI bills. So our token usage is going up, but we cut our AI bill by almost 50%, 50. And then that follows on Uber saying we blew through our entire token budget for the year in 4 months. And so those are the things near term when you've got the top 1% of companies accounting for probably more than 50% of the AI spend. If they're trying to cut back, can the other 99% make up for it? I'm not sure that's the case near term. And so that's why I sort of was saying back on June 20th, when I put that post out you're referring to, that I think you're going to see a speed bump. And the problem right now is things are not oversold. They're down a lot, but they're not oversold yet. But I'm starting to wade into some of the infrastructure names and going, okay, maybe it's time to start putting my toe back in the water here and see if this can work, that infrastructure can work while your total AI spend kind of the rate of growth starts to flatten out.
Arguably the most important earnings season we've ever had in terms of the AI trade.
Hi, Marley. Thanks for having me on. This is a pivot point in the AI trade because we're going to learn if the trade is on sale or if it's going through some rationalization. And we've got some great leaders in the market to kick us off this week, including Alphabet, Intel, and then looking at Tesla and Texas Instruments as other contributors to the momentum that will show whether we're digesting CapEx or increasing it.
And as we look at that, I was having conversation with a guest earlier in this show. I had conversations in my earlier show this morning about this concept of CapEx peaking. You bring up a very good point that you say that AI spend can actually slow without peaking. What is the difference? And why are people not looking at if it slows slightly, that doesn't mean that we've peaked?
Oh, Marley, we've reached an incredible quantum of CapEx at this point, surpassing what could be over 800 billion this year. And so the question is whether on a relative basis we surpass the expectations that have been set out or fall short of them, because what's certain is that there's rapid growth this year. There's going to be high growth next year as well. It's just whether that's going to continue, like the 80 to 90% growth we're seeing this year, or if it gets more in line with historical norms. And at Futurum, we see the plans that are being made, the dollars per gigawatt that are going up for each data center, and see that the market can grow still at a high level in 2027, even surpassing 50 to 60% in terms of CapEx growth to get these projects done with the bottlenecks that are still in place in the market. And that means that even if it doesn't grow as much as this year, it's still going to have very broad-based effects and surpass the market's expectations as well.
So if the hyperscalers grow their AI spending, but they're growing it at a slower rate, should investors view that as a warning sign, or is that just something healthy that will happen in the space?
Well, there's absolutely some engineering that's going on to not just allocate the most amount of capital possible, but we're starting to see the true ROI on CapEx investments, and that's going to lead to some rationalization, especially as hyperscalers reach the limits of their free cash flow and start to dip into debt markets, as Alex mentioned in the last segment. The use of custom silicon is a cost-saving measure for hyperscalers that can improve the operating margins of their clouds because they're able to save up to 75% on a new chip, but use it for the right reason. And that's where there's a role for premium, top-of-the-line NVIDIA GPUs with a complementary role based on the reference architectures we're seeing, where you can use this custom silicon to do what it's best for. And so that overall means that maybe you don't have to double your CapEx every year in order to serve demand, but you still need all the compute you can get because you're serving different use cases and ultimately using every wafer you can get your hands on. And
you mentioned Alphabet earlier. I mean, we're going to hear from Alphabet. They're going to be one of the first huge names we hear from. Their CapEx spend projected to be about $190 billion just this year alone. Why is their guidance in this quarter going to be so important for the entire semiconductor industry?
Google's taken a step forward in terms of the design of the agentic data center. And so we're going to see if CapEx for agents requires outstanding growth above what we've seen, or if there's actually some rationalization. because Google's taking a portfolio-based approach to computing. It's investing heavily in NVIDIA GPUs, but then also considering its own TPUs as well as CPUs from the Thursday's reporter Intel to serve its agent cloud that it launched at Google Next in April. Because of that all hands on deck philosophy that I mentioned, there's a great chance that they raise their CapEx guidance and invest more heavily to serve what looks like a internal shortage within their own company, and then also a need for more agent processing among their customers. But as we redesign agentic data centers, there's a possibility that we'll be able to achieve some cost savings with these cheaper processors.
And you mentioned Intel, so let's talk about Intel, because Intel has been really trying to regain its relevance in this AI conversation. They've had a pretty standout performance year to date. They're up about 163%. What does Intel need to prove this quarter?
Intel has a near-term catalyst in its CPU business, as well as reacceleration in its client business as well, that can bridge the gap to foundry revenue coming online. And what's going to be interesting is how the launch of new CPU products like Xeon 6 Plus are received by the market, and how it translates into revenue guidance for the remainder of the year. The continued deployment of leading foundry nodes for the new CPUs means that this can be an area where Intel achieves some significant pricing power improvement, and then restores growth in the data center CPU space, and that is something that can improve the company's outlook as investors start to see how many more CPUs will be needed per GPU to power agents.
And there's another name in here, too, that isn't necessarily a part of the AI tie-in, but certainly matters in the semiconductor conversation with Texas Instruments. I mean, you called them the analog bellwether in the notes that you sent over. So as we look at TXN, what are its results going to tell us about the broader semiconductor cycle, knowing that it's a different company than a lot of the other semi names that we usually talk about?
These analog semiconductors, Marley, are really essential to deal with the power bottlenecks that we're facing because the data center racks that we're installing have such significant power requirements. You need to be able to manage additional voltage. And so Texas Instruments data center business has been growing strongly, over 60%. And that's a direct sign that there's more advanced data center architectures being put in place that can handle higher voltage. And it's that transition to the next phase and the speed of conversion to high voltage that's going to show whether we're going to be able to get more power to these chips more efficiently. If Texas Instruments is growing strongly, it's a sign that that power issue is being addressed, and that's a positive sign for what's really been a catalyst, along with a more conventional analog cycle that's been on the upswing through the first.
I would say what the market is looking for, and especially starting off out of Alphabet this week, is that the durability and longevity of CapEx. I think the market wants to hear not blockbuster or numbers that are just going through the roof, but they want to hear that this is going to be durable, that it's not just going to be 1 quarter or 2 quarters, that there's going to be sustainability of spending because Alphabet and these other hyperscalers see the payoff down the line and can perhaps demonstrate some of that payoff. To all of this, this is hundreds of billions of spending, and the investors do want to see a payoff to have more confidence that the ecosystem that is benefiting from all this CapEx, the semiconductors, the semiconductor equipment companies, the data center stocks, that all of that is sustainable. So it's really more about longevity, durability of the trends, future ROI payoffs of these expenditures. I think the market is looking for comfort in, but it's very difficult to actually find that longer term comfort.
Yeah, so at least it's really maybe not show me the money yet, but show me the path to money. That's what the market wants to hear. You also mentioned the semiconductors, and that's really the epicenter of the recent market volatility. You say semiconductor earnings will be good. So does that translate to buy the dip right now? Because the fundamentals have never been really shaken. It's really the leverage cleanse story that people are talking about here. So something mechanical that is the problem right now, no?
I don't know that I would say something mechanical. I think the numbers going to be very good because there are hundreds of billions of dollars coming out of the hyperscaler CapEx spending, and a good chunk of that is being funneled down to the semiconductor companies. Higher prices, greater volumes, the trends look very strong. Again, the focus is really going to be not this quarter, but how durable these trends are. The question is not about 2026 numbers so much as it's about 2027 numbers, and can we really have confidence in those numbers, and will this spending be sustainable? So I think the numbers will be strong enough to provide stability in the semiconductor names. I'm not sure that we're going to get enough of clarity of messaging about the future of spending and durability of these trends that we'll see another leg and catalyst up in these semiconductor names. But stability would be good because so far over the past few weeks, it's been a pretty bumpy ride for the semiconductor space.
Yes, for sure. And I think the market's mission is to find the next thing, because the consensus seems to be that, yes, when it comes to semiconductor space, the fundamental story could be good. Earnings, the demand will be there. But it's just that it will be harder to see the level of gains, the degree of gains that it's had over the last 12 months or so for the next 12 months. It's just not going to be really the same. So what is the next thing the market moves on to is really the question. Do we want to find another source of scarcity coming from artificial intelligence demand?
I don't think we should actually be looking for scarcity anymore. I think a lot of that trade is played out. Perhaps we could be in the last legs of that trade over the next couple of months. But what I think investors should shift their focus to is which companies, which industries, which sectors are going to be the major beneficiaries of AI in terms of actual implementation. One way to start to tease that out in second quarter earnings is to look at which companies, which sectors, which industries are increasing their profit margins. I think now is a good time. There's been enough of a rollout, enough of an impact that we can start to make some assessments of which areas are seeing greater benefits from AI, and that should show up in profit margins. So I think that's something investors should pay close attention to. We can speculate where some of those areas are. I think some of them perhaps could be showing up in financial services. Some of those could be showing up in healthcare. Some of those could be showing up in companies that rely more heavily on automation and robotics, which is starting to be rolled out more. But I think that's what we should think about where the durable shift is. The durable shift is which companies and areas of the market are really going to be long-term beneficiaries from AI and technology, not where the next bottleneck is going to be. That's more of a short-term story that I think is largely played out.